is probably the heartbeat of like that type of industry. Like one of my bigger dealer chains, like had the biggest lead company in the country. Like in fact, they just sold it to Cars Direct, and they own dealerships too. And I think I probably know 20 different people that own mail companies there, and just from being just in business so long, they're doing stuff that I don't push the products as much as I used to, because most guys are set in what they're doing.
Sure.
And as far as like direct mail in Michigan, Danielle pretty much owns the whole territory, if you're listening. And so I can't even hardly get a pull. She does fairly well with it, but I don't like selling. I want CPS. I want a dealer to be a CPS dealer for what we do, which is purchasing contract. Mail's great. That's the type of stuff. I've made a ton of money on it. But you definitely have to weigh the risks of a bad sale versus what.
The relationship.
Yeah, because you definitely want contracts, and that's your first and foremost, I think. And if you mention leads and the guy's in, but a lot of guys are just doing 3 different things.
And it's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough to focus.
right.
It's tough
Yeah,
to get their attention.
but believe me, eventually, whatever they're doing, and as long as they know about your product, I wouldn't spend much time. Personally, I don't spend much time selling direct mail to dealers or things. Not that you shouldn't, because if a dealer wants to do it, I mention it. I always say I don't sell it, I tell it.
Yeah.
And when dealers do it, I mean, I've done quite a bit of it.
I used to sell it. I know it's a tough sell.
Yeah.
For a mail house here in Southern California.
Oh, wow, right.
It's not an easy sale, but I mean, aside from that, my point is, like, I get it. We need to get them more vested all in with CPS. I get all that. But my point is, like, for me personally, and again, my belief is, why am I going to focus on something else when I can't even get them, like, in my core business, right? I'm supposed to be a lending bank on auto loans.
Right.
So why am I even talking about those things at this point?
Well,
It's just
because
me.
if they're not doing advertising, though, you definitely want to make it, because I always ask dealers about their advertising.
Okay.
And a lot of times, the owner's in bed with certain advertising company, and as you well know, they're probably getting trips to Hawaii or they get gift cards. I mean, I know I have a couple of dealers that they do mail with me every once in a while, and they always want the price to be jacked up to cover a $500 gift card. So, and he doesn't even really complain about it, and those are the best ones, because when he tells the dealer, when the dealer asks him how his mail went, he always says, "Oh, it went great. I sold 5 off it. Oh, we made our money back." Yeah. So he just like flips some deals that he did randomly over to his direct mail line, and it makes it look like, and he made $500. But
that's cool.
I think that when you get comfortable with the dealer and he's actually funding a lot of contracts with you, that'll come in. No, but the ones that aren't, that tell you you're dead, that's always when it comes up. As soon as the dealer tells me he's dead, like if you say how's business, he's dead, and say, well, do you doing any mail, whatever. And if there's data available, yeah, definitely sell it to them. And if sometimes they work so good that they'll do it 4 or 5 times in a row, and it's a nice stream. And we don't buy every single deal off it, or we'll buy it a little rough, but like the last mailer I did in Tennessee, the dealer did most of their deals with Capital One.
Wow.
Yeah, because they're a big Capital One dealer.
Yeah.
But they could only do the Capital One mailer every other month, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so he filled it in with ours, and now he's done a couple, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
what are your thoughts on mail versus leads? I mean, in the sense that, because like, I'm finding that in these rural areas where there's small towns, people are not that internet savvy. So they're not all lead on internet versus I'll go to my mailbox and look at my mail.
Right.
Versus,
I know.
so I'm trying to figure, my thought process is I'm trying to figure out mail versus leads. Of course, they're both and online BK. I mean, they're all very good as what they bring in for the customer. But what's the best thing for me to tell my dealership when they're in this certain area?
Well, it's my experience that I think the leads work really good to a dealer that's equipped to handle leads. I don't think every dealer is equipped to do leads right, and then they wind up complaining about them.
Right,
So,
because I had a dealer go.
they have to have a BDC department and follow up, because one guy cannot buy 100 leads and get them fed to him and do everything else he has to do and actually follow up and work them. That's the good thing about the Blue Sky leads, actually, with the virtual follow-up. So I haven't had a lot of success selling those. I don't know if any of you have. You did? Does it work pretty good?
It's alright.
The guy doesn't like it very much, but I don't know if he had realistic
Yeah.
expectations of what it was. Because they're a larger independent, and I told him about the leads, and then I had the Blue Sky people call him and everything. And then I called him maybe 2 weeks ago and asked him, like, hey, are you getting good leads from Blue Sky? Like, what's going on? And he was like, it's not working out the way we thought it was. But I don't know if he's as well equipped, like, to touch on what you said, to handle the leads like that.
Yeah, you gotta be really set up, and a lot of dealers that are set up like that, they're already buying the leads the way they want them, and they're happy with the way it works. They don't really like change, but it just depends on the area, like you said. Mailers seem to work good in the rural areas, but.
I think a good transition for selling mail or to discussing mail is when they do say they are slow. It's a great opportunity to have that conversation, discuss it, kind of propose it, get them in contact with their mail rep, as opposed to just hitting them with it when they're busy. You know, in terms of they're doing really well, do you want to invest more? Do you want to take more of your profits into the mail? You know, they might want to if that's their business model, and that goes into kind of discussing what do they do in terms of advertising. It's good to know what your dealer invests in advertising. If they're putting any money in, even to a local, they're in Michigan or whatever, and they say, oh, we only advertise here locally, but they're putting money out to advertise. Who are you advertising? Who is your niche market? Who are you trying to get to drive in to your dealership? Those kind of conversations will help you determine what kind of business they can generate. Even if we can't, increase our individual profits by selling mail, it's information that's valuable to understanding the business model for that dealership. Or if they're going to drive around in a golf cart, advertising to the locals.
Well, yeah, the dealer do
That was a direct for Danny, but
I have one
Oh, yeah.
of that guy.
Does he got beer in the back?
He does, actually. Mini fridge, got a system, 8-inch rims.
he just doesn't have the
He's my
deposits.
bromance dealer. He's my bromance.
Oh, nice.
Any other questions with funding issues? I think before we kind of move on to some of the last bits, any questions you've had in terms of how to handle certain things that, I think combined experience in the rooms doesn't match the issues that Jason's probably handled over the years. Sonny?
Would it, as far as returns are concerned, like, because you, in the sense of, I've never done 100 deals. I would love to do 100 deals. But here it is, I'm struggling with my little 21 deals I have funded, and I have 11 returns. So I'm trying to figure out, in the realm of how to combat my return issue, because it's killing me. Every month, it's a double digit. No matter what I fund, I'm trying to figure out where do I try to get my dealers in to the point where we're fighting these returns. And it's not the fact, there are times when it's not the fact that it's the dealer. I've looked at the POI, it's the fact that my funding department, IQuest, is so good, they've found out that this issue is their debt ratio is bad, their POI is coming short, and it's issues where we're finding the job time is deteriorated only because we've checked it a second time or a third time, something's not right. And so I'm losing deals on issues that are just totally uncommon.
I think that if you're funding 21 deals or what and having that bigger return, I mean, that's like almost 50%. So I think with that lower volume, I would take a lot more time just to go over the approvals you are getting. And if they're promised to send and they're, true PTSs from your buyer, I would definitely go over all of them because it wouldn't take that long for you to look at them, and if you could call the dealer and just double check things that might be red flagged. Who's your supervisor?
Elsie.
Elsie's knows, you should work with her on some of your, just think if you went over, so you're averaging a lot of returns per package, if you went over a week's worth of deals that are coming in or whatever and just looked at some maps, maybe she can give you some tips on some red flags, because some of the stuff you can just spot right away. I mean, kind of thing, and maybe try to overcome it and just call the dealers and double check on the job times or what.
In my mind, my thought process is if you're doing 100 deals, what's your returns look like?
Oh, shit, I don't, they're not that bad, I don't
No.
think, per se, maybe 15%
Yeah,
sometimes.
you're typically under the
Most
in the
my,
teens.
I hate to say it, most of my returns, which I don't like this, that I'm judged by them, are missed signature on gap. See, the problem with Michigan is it's a bushing law state, so once the dealer rolls that car, customer owns it. As soon as they send it to state and it goes through and it's gotta go to state within an amount of time, the customer owns the car. You can't get it back, so the dealer needs to send the customer a letter that says, we're your lien holder now, CPS didn't fund your contract, and you have to make payments directly to us. They can't repo it till it's 1 day late. So everybody that does subprime in Michigan, there's dealers that don't do subprime for that reason. They don't want the risk. The ones that do it, they're pros, and they know to double check stuff. They do not want a deal back. So I spend a lot of time going over changes in the application. I mean, it's constant. And, in California, it's a totally different animal. They're rolling the car at 11:30 at night.
Right.
And with no steps.
Right.
And then
Because I have.
they're collecting them the next day or whatever, and and they don't care, because I've had dealers just tell me, it's all right, you can't get it done, we're just gonna hook it tomorrow. I know where the guy works, and then they just grab the car. In Michigan, you can't. You'll wind up in court. In Pennsylvania is the same way. The dealer, there's a Wisconsin. Yeah, Washington's a big one. Yeah. Massachusetts too. Yeah. And those are the ones where you should have less returns if you have dealers in that state. But by the same token, I get just as many deals returned that are frustrating in Tennessee, Alabama, and California. But the key is if you're on top of your deals and you've trained your dealers enough to know that application matters and they care enough to not want a deal to get returned, you should be on top of it. And it sounds like you're not overwhelmed too much in volume as far as that, but maybe spend an hour out of your day to kind of look at some of the deals that are coming in before. Maybe just call the dealer and double check and say, hey, that your job time's right, whatever it might be. Because that's too many returns for the amount of deals. I don't mind the returns where they miss the signature and stuff. I actually love to call the dealer and say, dude, what were you thinking? And they'll get, a lot of times because how we send it back regular mail, they'll get on the re-signing the contract right away and ship it back before it even gets out of here. I think now, and those won't count as a return because
as long as they're in the same month.
It's a 28 status,
and
then the new contract comes in, it doesn't go all the way to 29. So you might want to look at the type of returns you're getting and get the dealers right on top of it right away, because if it's a signature thing, you're gonna get dinged on a return that shouldn't even have been. It's not technically a return, but you're still gonna get dinged on it.
Is a high return ratio. Take a look at what are your repeat offenders, because a lot of the return issues like this are starting at the education, the reviewing of the structure, and then not following up and explaining to them. And if you have those dealers, like Jason said, one of the first comments is, how's your funding? Well, how's your app? And it comes back to the app. If we're having deterioration, and in most cases, if we need to call it, no underwriter wants to call an employer 3 times unless there's a need for something's coming up, right? And have those conversations, not arguments or confrontations, but conversations about what we need to see and how we can be more successful going forward.
I guess a little bit on relationships.
We've
I kind of
touched
really
it. We've touched on
most of this stuff. So don't be short with your dealer. I try not to do that because especially when you first sign them up, you kind of want them to know that you're a personality, not a buyer. Just A, B, C, D questions versus kind of asking for more business, that type of stuff. And if he's short with you, that's fine. Don't try to keep him on the phone. If he says he's really busy, say, hey, then if you're really busy, you want me to call you back at a different time, or call me when I kind of touched on that. I try not, if a dealer you want a dealer to think that their problem is a real problem and that you're going to try to help them get it done. And even if it's the most far-fetched thing in the world and they're really adamant on it, that's when you can have somebody and it's an approval, but it's not going to get done because job time changed or there's a huge gap. I kind of touched on this. Call the buyer, make sure they send them out a turn now, and make sure they know that you called to try to work the deal. That way there'll be notes in there, and put your notes in, because I've had dealers call on the backside before, and you know, if you don't have your notes in there, and the buyers might give them a totally different reason or find a way to get the deal done, then you kind of look bad. But I think it's very important to always make a dealer feel like you tried to get something done, even as bizarre as it is. And if it's self-employed or 1099, and I mean, even hang up the phone and then call them back and say, man, I took it all the way up to the top and we just can't do that. You know, it does. It looks like you actually tried.
Yeah.
You know, instead of just saying no. Say, let me see what I can do. Maybe we can pull a miracle off, and then say, make something up like, I thought I had a chance because you were on a good car, your LTV was working, but whatever. And then, you know, a lot of times they'll say, yeah, we'll get the next one. So, let's see. And then this is the biggest one that I kind of obviously already talked on, but don't be afraid to ask the dealer what he needs to get the deal done. So when it comes to a situation when somebody's asking for something completely stupid, you got to ask them, hey, do you have this deal bought somewhere else like that? And see what they say, because a lot of times they won't, and they'll say, well, no, that's why I'm on the phone with you. And then say, well, what exactly, where's your happy medium here where you make enough money that your used car salesman or your GM's gonna let you deliver this deal and that you're not going to, and you'll still make money. Sometimes I'll ask for a little bit more than we need, because it seems like to justify sometimes sign-offs, we cut it back a little bit from what you're asking.
Sure.
Sometimes you're negotiating with the dealer, sometimes you're negotiating with CPS.
Right, so it's just a little trick, like, and it doesn't always work, and sometimes it's not, and it's not like you're trying to get anything over on it, but initially, and I'm saying this because initially the guy wanted 10 times more than he was asking for, and then he really wants this, and then can live with this, so you give him the really wants, try to get that done knowing that he can live with what we might wind up getting. So every deal's like a little puzzle.
So what are your own beliefs or your own strategies on exceptions or you know, going above and beyond to capture deals? Like for me personally, as I'm establishing these relationships, I try to be upfront with them from the get-go and tell them, you know, hey, I don't mind going to bat for you, but understand I'm not going to do it on every deal. Like we're not going to operate that way. You know, so I usually try to make them work within the, you know, confinements of the structure,
Right.
LTV, payment, whatever. You know, cut you back, hey, you gotta cut 600 on sales price, whatever. They're not happy about it, but they usually accept it. You know what I mean? What are your beliefs? Because I hear mixed reviews. Some people are like, send everything up, make every deal happen. You know?
I only set up, yeah, and that sometimes could be wasting time.
Sure.
I've been doing it too long, so I kind of probably kill some deals on my own where I don't even send them up. And it's a benefit actually to CPS
in the long run, sure.
down. It's the guy that doesn't know me that well that knows that what I'm telling him, because most guys will be like, they just know that if I'm telling them that we're not going to do the deal. I mean, it's a mute point. I'm not even going to send it up, and they're fine with getting off the phone. They're not cutting us off. We're not going to do anything. Yeah. It's more of the dealer. You can just kind of tell that you've kind of just started working with this guy. He's new at a store, whatever, and you want to make it look like you're sending everything up. I pretty much have a set in my mind. I know what we're going to do. Obviously, LTV exceptions right now are not something we're doing. I mean, let's face it. So you guys, I know you guys all use all three books, and that's even become somewhat of an issue lately. If I don't know if you guys have noticed, but NADA is just booking the same price as Kelly a lot now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's almost like actually NADA's beating them on some cars.
A lot of
even
now.
Right. So what I've been doing is trying to use NADA on my California dealers.
Yeah,
like,
I've been doing that too.
Yeah, because they're actually getting Honda, of course, but yeah, I think Kelly's still a little bit higher on most stuff in California. It's kind of regional, but yeah, that whole 3-book thing is kind of, unless it's a 4x4 and stuff on a black book right now in the winter, those are through the roof.
Sure.
So, but it does help to get LTV exceptions done by rebooking it. And that's always the first thing I ask, especially if he's high on the thing, because usually it's deals where they have a trade-in.
Yeah.
that they're showing the
And
negative.
ag chart, yeah. It's killing me.
See, Michigan's kind of cool because a bunch of the dealers there won't show the negative, so they can just put it in the top line, and that actually helps you with your structure.
Yeah, put it right
Some
in the top
states, yeah, some states you gotta show the negative, and if you just hit, because with our structure, 115 plus, you're down, and if you're down, it's negative 2,800.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Crushing.
thing, and if you put it in the top line because the state allows you to, and you just show a wash for the trade, you're getting a lot more money. So you should run those options by your dealers when you're structuring, because sometimes it works out to your favor not to show negative.
California after that.
But yeah, here, thing, just don't send up stupid deals. Like, if you're not sure on a deal, I would check with your supervisor first, because you want the buyer to have a good rapport with you and not think that you're just sending everything up against the dartboard, because you're sending deals up that don't really make sense maybe, and then also you get into a thing where you're sending deals up that we're not even gonna capture. And that's one of the things I always ask the dealer, if I'm gonna get this deal done, are we getting it?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how many times the dealer will say, oh, you ended up losing it to AmeriCredit. Well, then why'd you waste my time? Like, and I'll get pissed at them. Oh, thanks, dude, I'll get you another one. I mean, yeah, I take it personal a little bit. I mean, come on, you told me if I got it done, I was getting it, and then, and guess what? Then 2 weeks later, he calls you on the deal and it got returned from AmeriCredit and you're getting it anyway. So, that happens actually a lot. I don't know if you guys ever get that. You get a contract in-house that the payment's due in 5 days, you're like, oh, who sent this back to you?
Yeah,
Right? I mean, it's like crazy.
Remember that James that we were working?
Yeah,
Is
kind
that
of-
kind of what the Santander, or Prestige is a big one, they're tough in funding, so I get a lot of bankruptcy deals back from Prestige. Problem is their rates are lower, so the dealer
Yeah.
really takes a hit if he didn't give it to us first, he's gotta try to either bump the rate or ask for an exception, but yeah, they're pretty tough in funding, they have a couple of niche things that they're nichey on and they don't like and stuff like that, so.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're not the only bank that's tough in funding. Regional, I hear dealers complain about everybody about funding. They like to they complain to you and make it seem like you're the worst because you're on
And
the
then
phone.
I guess we could just go over some of the practices that you follow and,
Well, one of them is staying out of funding. I try not to dwell on it, but I guess it's easier to say when you got, a few more deals in house other than, chasing to try to get your 30th funded or your 50th funded or whatever your goal might be set up as. But funding generally takes care of itself. The only time I get involved and will actually go look at a deal in funding is when it's in the status 28, the status 26s, because they're one step away.
Yeah, I'm kind of.
I do. The 26s and 28s are the only deals I'll really dwell on and kind of look at a little bit. And then,
one of the big points that Jason makes and we've all been discussing in terms of underwriting is not to micromanage deals, not to watch the paint dry, not to see every single action, but to be able to go in, 15 minutes, unless you have 3 pages of deals in house, everybody in this room could probably go through most of all their deals on a regular basis in 15, 20 minutes a day. Maybe 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, unless you get pulled in by the dealer, because you will naturally get pulled in. The underwriter will pull you in, the dealer will pull you in, a supervisor might see something and ask something of you. There'll be natural occurrences that bring you in, or you'll be talking to the dealer about another deal, and then they'll ask, what about that Martin one that's in-house? And you can go in. But we don't need to go into it, and see every action of another employee. That's just slowing us down, and that's something we have to really try and avoid, is watching that slow process. Now, if there's a situation where you see, and I think Jason made a good point to those blanket statements, if there's a situation where you don't see anything, the movement's not there, you're maybe missing a note and I'm trying to figure it out, that's when we need to speak to Kevin, Elsie, Alex, whoever's your supervisor, and say, hey, can you review this one with me really quickly? Just want to see where it's going on. Maybe I'll reach out to the dealer or whatnot. Quick stuff, but not reaching out to the underwriter. Do you know the status? Do you know what's going on? Where is this at? Those kind of things, those are a frustration. Supervisors and managers don't like them, because on this floor, we should be able to determine what's going on, and if Alex or Corey or whoever looks at it and is still dumbfounded by what they see, they will take the next step of saying, this thing hasn't moved, and now you're out of the loop, you're on to capturing business, bringing in more deals, So those are the kind of things we want to see. Glimpses. Jason's saying he stays out, but he'll take glimpses of what's going on just to get refreshed with, the situation.
Do you find that because you're doing so many deals and you get different buyers, or are you only working with one buyer?
Oh,
Or a
no, I
couple of
work
different
with
buyers?
whoever's got the deal.
Okay.
It's the same thing. Would I prefer to only talk to LaShonda and Iris every day? Probably would be great, because I have good rapport with them from, the years, and
Years past.
they're kind of my buyers on some of my deals. But every time a buyer has been good with me, they get promoted. So you can never really wait for, Laura was a great buyer, she's a supervisor. Tiffany was unbelievable, she's a supervisor. It's like, so as soon as you get accustomed to somebody, a lot of times they're gonna get, it's brutal too when you have a good rapport with the buyer and they're doing most of your big stuff, and then they get promoted. So it's best to just work the deals with whoever got them. And everybody's here is supposed to be doing the same thing, basically. Now, some people have different levels of authority, so they'll have to send it up to somebody else. But yeah, I don't call specific people just to get a deal done. I'll call whoever's assigned to it. So and as long as you're being courteous and using common sense in the things that you say, everybody can pretty much figure out the message you're giving. So that way, when it goes to, a lot of times it'll say, see previous message for rep. So if you're working with a newer buyer that really doesn't understand anything, when it says, see previous message for rep, asking for exception on such and such, the supervisor's gonna look at it and read your message to them anyway. So there's nothing real special about that. And as you well know, there's not much leeway on things right now anyway, that anybody could just sign off because they're your best friend. It's never really been like that at CPS, because we're basically, we want to buy the best possible paper to keep this place going. One deal, well, that's just something that's a time killer. If you find it, like there's deals, try to just work as many stuff as you want, but give yourself messages back. I do that in the system. I don't know what you guys use to follow up on stuff, but if there's a deal where we have to verify employment or whatever, I'll just put a follow-up on a message back to me, and just so I'm not staring at it all day, because I know that they faxed out and whatever, and then I'll let the dealer know, hey, it could be till tomorrow. That's it. Is what it is. But dwelling on one deal, one return, one thing, it's just, you don't get anywhere there. Just do your work on it and kind of move on and catch up on it, when you can. Always appear positive to your dealers. That's something that I'm guilty of sometimes, getting into a thing where I'm having a bad month. And even though may do 100 deals, that doesn't mean that that's where I want to be. I want to do 200 deals a month. I really actually want to do 220 deals a month. That makes my life very easy. 200 deals, 180. My bills are set up. I have a kid with braces. I got to make money, and I know that there's slow months in the future, so I never rest. Like if I hit 150, back when we were killing it early, I'm just trying for 200, because guess what? In 2 months, you might have a slow month. So everything you do every month is like, every day has to be. Every day is the last day, like the last deal, you gotta do it. Because if you just like rest on your laurels and say, oh, my rent's $1,500, I got that paid, my car payment's paid, I'm gonna take the rest of the week off. Guess what? Then the first week of the next month, you're gonna have nothing coming in. It's all pipeline. You just gotta keep the pipeline going. And that'll make life a lot easier for you. And believe me, tax season's right around the corner. You guys that are like borderline busy, you're going to be seeing mucho apps. It happens. Now, what you do with them is going to be, how prepared you are to work them is going to be the key, because your phone will also ring a heck of a lot more. You will notice it, and hopefully it's one of those. There's been times during tax seasons that we've had where I literally want to pull my hair out. Really, that's like one call to the other. So hopefully you guys get a little taste of that. And I've seen people go from 50 deals to a month and 100, and
So
like
the
that.
future looks bright, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Believe me, I don't think they.
That's when you get.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You got to be a squirrel in the tax season.
Yeah.
Collect them nuts and save them. What were you gonna say?
So just doing over like 100 deals every month, staying consistent. does it change from Monday to Friday? Do you do the same thing?
I do the same thing every day. I like to use the AS400 personally. I like to go into the dealer lot, you know, where you type in your initials, marketing, and I put in 2021. And the first thing I do is look at the deals with super low scores. Love those deals. Now, a lot of times you go in them and it's a super low score, but the deal's crap. So I don't like to waste my time calling on deals that are an 18 score, which get with a 250 payment. But if the dealer calls me on it directly, I would do it. But then I'll go to the deals in single digits first, and then I like to work the deals that are in that sweet spot, like up to 12, and then the other ones, and then eventually, if you're whatever you're doing that day, however you're working your deals that day, try to touch every approval, because obviously we capture alphas with 16, 17 scores as much as we do the lower score ones, but the lower score ones are usually the ones that you're going to be able to do a great structure with a better LTV, less down, that type of stuff. So those are the first ones you want to hit. And a lot of times those are the ones that the dealers already got bought 5 other places and you're got. But at least you called. And then sometimes our low score deal, nobody else bought it. I mean, that's the whole thing. You never know. And if you're not going to know unless you call. And not everybody's set up to have dealers that call them all the time. I mean, you got to get to that point. And I have dealers that call me, they only want to talk to me. And like I said, that's not a great thing. It's better when they're active with their buyers. Like, they'll hang up. Like, if Iris doesn't answer, they'll hang up the phone. They won't talk to the other person that picks it up.
I have some like that.
And then they'll call me. And it's like, I still have to send it. Iris may be off. I still have to send it back to the person that's covering their queue anyway. But I don't tell them that. Like, why are you bothering me? I said, let's do this deal and get it done and be excited. And that's the thing. And when you're having a bad month or you're pissed off about returns, when the dealers can hear that in your voice, I mean, that's a sales thing that they teach all the time, because dealers can. I've had dealers say, God, you sound grumpy today. And I'm like, you know what, I am. And some you can say that to, but you are grumpy. So, and then I'll flip my tune right away. But sorry, I didn't realize I was coming off that way, that type of thing. So anyway, so that the complacent, never be satisfied. I'm actually always working for that pipeline. You got to keep it full, and there's never enough money or never enough deals in the pipeline. Go ahead.
How many apps are you getting a month?
Roughly 25, 23. It fluctuates. I used to strive to get 4,000 apps, man, back when we first started. You were here earlier, but the more apps, the merrier. And we had a basically.
You're getting quality 2,500.
Yeah, well, no, they're not quality. It's tough. I've always went by the theory, 1,000 apps equals 50 deals.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so 2,000 apps equal 100. And I think you guys, anybody that has the dealer's ability to get up to that number of apps, you're going to do. If you've got 2,000 apps, you're going to get pretty close to 100 deals. You should be, or you're doing something wrong.
Okay.
Because that's enough looks to weed out the crap and get.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about at the beginning. I mean, for the people under a year, it's 25 funding dealers, 50 deals, 1,000 apps. That's one of the goals. So for Jason being here, as long as he's going to get to 2,000 apps to get to that. So for any of those people that are in the top 10s, over 100, they're creeping up to that 2,000 plus apps. Maybe 1,800, but nobody really under the 1,900 is hitting 100 plus deals. So that just goes back. Instead of trying to capture the 100 deals from your 1,200 apps, I need 2,200 apps to get 100 deals, right? So that goes back to always keeping your pipeline open, talking to more dealers, cold calling, expressing with your dealers, are you sending everything that we should be getting a look at? We've had the conversation, I've had it with John, the apps cost us money, but the way we're going to make more money is more apps. So we don't mind paying for those apps because they're going to generate more money. If we had, everybody had 2,000 apps, we would have a lot more 100 plus reps, 100 plus rep funders. So it's simple. When you look at his numbers, he needs to be at that area to capture.
But you are at the higher threshold because of your training. You're running like an 8%, right?
No, my look the book is not
5?
great. No, I have a tough area. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad area, but in Michigan, we're. I'm not going to say we're competitive because we're not that competitive. I have to work for every freaking deal.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of times I lose them. Shit, one of my biggest dealer chains owns Gateway Finance, and they're, yeah. and
They finance themselves, and then
They have no, it's a bank, but they own them.
Okay.
Yeah, if they have a super bad deal, they can always get Gateway to buy it. And so, yeah, and they send them over. Yeah, and they even have contests, and Gateway does a lot of business. And just the fact that the Garber Group owns them, it's, I mean, I lose deals to their own bank, and there's 41 stores of that chain, and I think I have 10 or 11, and I gotta fight them too. And, you know, Michigan's the heart, and I'm not crying about Michigan, what we do there, because the paper's obviously, it is what it is. I have to work hard to capture business. You know, Pennsylvania's the same way for Greg. He doesn't get deals because he's Greg Tolino. He gets deals because he works pretty darn hard. I believe me, I wish I could sit on the, people always call me and say, oh, you're sitting on the beach in California? I'm like, no, I'm sitting in front of my computer. So anyway, you definitely, there, even the areas where we seem to have lower rates, though, you guys should know this, like say Ohio, California, whatever, other lenders are kind of like that too there. So it's not like, I can't say, oh, if I had California or Kentucky, I'd be doing more deals. No, because other lenders are basically, it goes by job losses and stuff. So I think in areas that have bad performance, other lenders are pretty much in the same realm.
Well, you see, they send the list out that has the percentages of dealer penetration per state. And if you're in one of the states that's not doing a lot of dealer penetration,
Right.
what are your thoughts on trying to either gain new business or trying to see, because assumably because what we get in our dealer maintenance is all in ICE or all in START or whatever the case may be.
Right.
My thought process is that if these dealerships that we see on the list are not that penetrated in this particular state and they're all in ICE in our dealer maintenance, what good, how, as me as a rep, how do I seem to penetrate more if this state is not doing as well as it could be, should be?
I would just call the individual dealer, if you have a list of dealers, and ask him what he does. And also, I think our auto count is accessible to everybody, right? So you can kind of see, if you ask for auto count, can you pull by individual dealers? Yeah, if you look at that store and you see, and maybe you don't want to waste much time talking to them, because you'll see in their lender profile that they're not sending any subprime apps anywhere, really. I mean, there's no.
Yeah, to that point, if you saw Arkansas as a state we want to penetrate into more, and you see we don't have much going on in Arkansas, you see a bunch of them in ICE, send your super request for a auto count of a zip code that you're interested in. You might see no other subprime lenders are in there, so we might have an issue in general. There might not just be much subprime business there. But if you see that, oh, well, Prestige is getting this, Tidewater's getting that, there's other competition in there, then that might be some way. So you want to, instead of just knocking on doors and making calls, have a game plan of what direction you're going to go into. I think that is a little bit more useful in terms of your time.
And also the area where you're calling, obviously if you're calling in Beverly Hills, California, there's probably not a lot of people buying cars there with too bad a credit, or Newport Beach, we don't get a crap load of deals out of, right? But if, like Michigan has certain areas that they just stay away from subprime. In fact, they don't even want subprime people in their neighborhoods. So the dealers will even say they don't carry used cars for that or whatever. You call up work a deal and they'll just straight up tell you, we're not pushing for that business because it's too risky. But if you hit the Detroit area, man, the sky's the limit, right? So obviously, places with the bigger population is going to have more subprime deals. So you can always Google the population in the areas too. And it's not always that the penetration is not the problem. Is maybe they're just don't have the right. But it's all the area. You can find a piece of gold anywhere. That's for sure.
And maybe those ICE ones, they just didn't have the right rep, having the discussions and trying. So
well, maybe a guy just got hired there. I mean, there's a lot of times where my guys will get hired at a store and that is an ICE store or whatever. In fact, I had one that was a really good one a couple weeks ago. I still owe him a butt kicking for it, but I told him I wanted, but I had to trade 3 deals for it, 3 dealers, and I couldn't decide which 3 to send. And then I waited too long, and somebody else from the dealership called, and they assigned him to a rep without having to trade anything.
It wasn't mine.
What was it?
You can still talk to him. You guys are friends.
I know. I don't want to deal with that. And then I guess the last, always try to answer the phone, because even if you're shopping or whatever, because like I said, it's a quick question, and the fact that you picked up goes, like, you know, you don't ever want somebody to say, I try to call my rep, he never answers the phone. People hate to hear that, and I used to get that all the time with my field reps when I was in underwriting, and you know the guys that you just knew weren't working. And back then we had some, you know, it was a pretty great trained job where, you know, they didn't have to really do much, but, you know, sign up dealers and they weren't working. I mean, nobody really had laptops, that type of stuff. So they were just prima donnas. And they I used to have to do their work for them, basically. It was my relationship as an underwriter, and I still actually have some of those dealers. And then as far as giving your cell phone, I don't know if you guys do that, but I honestly think you all should give your 949 number and have it forwarded to your cell phone when you leave at night. Because, like I said, as soon as I used to get to the parking structure, my phone would ring. And yeah, if you miss that deal, you can miss 10 a month that way. And there are times where dealers literally are going to decide whether they're going to give the deal, and the customer's there. And if you don't answer the question, they're just going to send it to where they can get an answer. So.
Yeah, because if when you leave at 5 doesn't mean they're leaving at 5. But I think everybody probably has some positive takeaways from this, learn something else. I think one of the big things that I was kind of excited about when Greg came, obviously Jason, we're going to have other ones coming in, is to see somebody who's on that top 10 that's hitting 100 consistently, 150s at times on upwards, is working just like we all are, working extremely hard. In some cases harder, has other techniques, and that's what he's here to share, because him giving you the knowledge and helping out is not preventing him hitting 150. You know, he wants the best for the company, he's invested in the company, and he wants us all to do well. And it's nice to see Greg and these other ones, and I'm sure we'll have like Tim and other individuals coming out at times and providing their knowledge. But it's nice to see, and I think a lot of a misnomer is, oh, they have great stores, so they're doing well, and they're not working their deals. I've called Jason countless times. What up, bud? I got a dealer on the other line. I say what I need to say really quick. Okay, guy, and he's on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. Always on the phone, always talking to dealers, always focused on business. And I know there's a level of frustration with him right now being here because he's missing phone calls.
I have 20 missed calls from all car dealers. So like I honestly, in my life, it drives her up a wall, but I'm addicted to working and keeping people happy because this is my job and I gotta do it. So I know he wants to maybe go out to lunch, and I would rather just go home and work, but I think I might go out to lunch with him.
Just this one time.
Yeah.
But
Make an exception.
But and you know, I appreciate, and I think we all do. Obviously, there'll be other people that value this, and you've all met him. And I know Jason's the type of person if he has the time, you have a quick question, he'd rather talk to you guys individually than in this kind of setting. You know, I know he enjoyed it and stuff, but if you guys have a question, I'm sure, you know, shoot him an email. I am a quick phone call. If he has the time, more than happy to help out.
I'm a proponent of the only dumb question is the one that wasn't asked. And I even tell my dealers that too. He's like, oh, I know this is a stupid question. And I always tell them, dude, not a stupid question. Because with us, it's like doing a crime. There's 1,000 ways you can mess up. You have to eliminate at least 100 of them. So you got to get the deal done and got to get it funded. That easy question could have just saved you a deal. So, or that stupid question. So. Anyway, sorry to bore you guys if I did, but looks like it's all good.
I appreciate it.
Cool.
Thank you very much.